Nothing has brought me greater joy than watching the Walt Disney Company absolutely panic over the last few weeks. They're mad at South Park because they're making fun of their woke ideologies, constantly race swapping or religion swapping everything in their movies.
I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. I watched it for the first time in probably 17 years.
You are simply just there to show up and say your lines and look the way they want you to look.
This was supposed to be Disney's next billion-dollar reboot. A modern fairy tale, a powerful new princess, and a bold casting choice meant to usher in a new era. But instead, it's become a full-blown nightmare. What started as a feel-good announcement has spiraled into one of the most chaotic PR disasters Disney has ever faced. Fans are furious, executives are scrambling, and South Park, they just threw gasoline on the fire. Rachel Zegler wasn't just cast as Snow White. She was launched into the middle of a cultural war.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
he wasn't a stalker, by the way.
Thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
With a brutal animated parody that may have destroyed more than just her reputation. But how did it all unravel so fast? And can Disney recover before the damage becomes permanent? What you're about to hear is the story they don't want you to know. Section 1. The casting that started a fire. When Disney announced that Rachel Zegler would play Snow White in its next major live-action remake, the reaction was instant and split right down the middle. Some praised the decision as a bold step toward representation. A Latina actress leading one of Disney's most iconic fairy tales, it was marketed as groundbreaking, fresh, empowering. But others saw it differently. Snow White, by definition, was as white as snow.
In addition to that, there was already an uproar about her being cast as Snow White because she is not Caucasian, she is a Latina, she is half Colombian, and so people were like, why were you cast in the first place? We just had a black Little Mermaid, now we're having a Latina Snow White, and she is literally called Snow White. This doesn't make sense.
And that is why we hate the diversity, equity, and inclusion casting and writing in movies.
And fans of the original 1937 classic weren't exactly thrilled that someone so publicly critical of the source material would be cast in the role. And that's where the trouble really began. In one interview after another, Zegler dismissed the original film as weird. She called the prince a stalker, said the romance was outdated, and declared that her version of Snow White wouldn't dream of love anymore. She'd dream of power.
No longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
Within days, backlash exploded across the internet. Comment sections lit up. Critics called it disrespectful. And instead of a buzzworthy reboot, the film became a lightning rod for controversy. But if Disney thought the drama would blow over, they were dead wrong. Because that's when South Park stepped in. Section 2. South Park lights the match. Trey Parker and Matt Stone have never been afraid to go there. And in their DEI special, they went all in. They didn't just mock Disney, they obliterated them. And Rachel Zegler, she was at the center of it all. In the episode, South Park unleashed a full-blown parody of the Snow White remake.
The last time I had the dream, I was walking down the school hallway. And that's when I started to notice that something's wrong. Everyone I cared about has been systematically replaced. And finally, I want to scream, and I'm like, why are they replacing every single character with someone who is diverse?
Complete with an animated version of Zegler, who hijacks scenes, rewrites the script on the spot, and launches into cringy rants about modern values. But here's the twist. Most of what she said in the parody, it wasn't fiction. It was ripped straight from her real-life interviews. They turned her actual quotes into punchlines, and suddenly, the internet exploded. Clips went viral, memes flooded social media. Fans did side-by-side comparisons of real interviews and South Park scenes, and the overlap was almost too perfect. The line between satire and reality was gone. For Disney, this wasn't just a joke. It was a PR bomb. Section 3. Disney panics behind closed doors. According to insiders, Disney was caught completely off guard by how hard the parody hit and how fast it spread. Behind closed doors, panic set in. PR teams held emergency meetings, executives scrambled to contain the fallout, and the first move? Silence the storm before it could get any worse. Rachel Zegler was reportedly told to go dark. No tweets, no Instagram posts, no comments to the press. Upcoming appearances were canceled.
One major development going on now involves more to do with Rachel Zegler and her attitude towards South Park Studios and Paramount after learning about what they are planning for their upcoming special called the DEI Special.
Red carpets, talk shows, even a rumored performance on Saturday Night Live. Officially, it was due to scheduling conflicts, but everyone knew the truth. Rachel Zegler had just become radioactive inside the Walt Disney Company, and the studio didn't want to risk pouring gasoline on the fire. But Zegler wasn't taking it quietly. Behind the scenes, she was furious.
Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch! The right to buy Cosby sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with the sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
And this started with the movie star Rachel Zegler, who I believe would be categorized as a loudmouth dope.
Section 4, legal threats and studio betrayal. Sources close to the situation say Zegler felt completely abandoned by the studio that once championed her. Not only had Disney failed to publicly defend her during the backlash, they were now actively pushing her out of the spotlight. Her team reportedly believed this wasn't just bad PR, it was a breach of contract. According to those same sources, Zegler's agreement with Disney guaranteed a certain level of visibility, interviews, press coverage, promotional support, and now all of it was being shut down.
On the original production, I was scared of it. Oh, it was so weird. It was the stalker. Like, I feel like if you are taking on the most iconic Disney role ever, genuinely, like this was the most prolific Disney film, I feel like you should kind of have some sort of reverence for the original production.
Legal advisors were called in, clauses were examined. While no lawsuit was filed, the message was clear. Zegler was ready to fight back. And that wasn't the only battle brewing. Section 5, Gal Gadot drama and on-set tensions. Even before the South Park episode aired, rumors swirled about behind-the-scenes drama between Zegler and her co-star, Gal Gadot. The two were reportedly barely speaking during production. Entire scenes were rewritten or cut, and tension on set was described as unbearable. For a film already under fire, the last thing Disney needed was infighting between its two leads. But fans noticed, and the internet ran with it. Memes mocked the tension. Leaks surfaced, claiming entire sequences were scrapped due to creative clashes. And Gal Gadot, once seen as the film's potential savior, was now pulled into the chaos. Suddenly, the Snow White remake wasn't just a troubled project. It was a full-blown disaster. Section 6, the battle between tradition and progress. At this point, the controversy had outgrown the film itself. It was no longer just about Rachel Zegler or even about Snow White. It became a cultural war. On one side, audiences who felt Disney was abandoning beloved classics in favor of forced modern messaging.
Even if everything worked perfectly, it would have been almost impossible for this movie to succeed because you're comparing it to one of the most beloved films of all time and a truly groundbreaking movie.
On the other, fans who believed change was necessary, that these stories needed to evolve. Zegler became a symbol of that divide. Her defenders said she was challenging outdated tropes, pushing for progress. Her critics said she was arrogant, dismissive, and out of touch. And South Park? They didn't pick sides. They burned everything. The parody wasn't just hilarious. It was a brutal commentary on performative virtue signaling, creative decay, and corporate hypocrisy. It didn't matter if you agreed with Rachel or not. You couldn't look away. Section 7, can Snow White even survive? With the film already delayed, rewritten, and reshot, many are asking the obvious question, can Snow White 2025 still succeed? The odds aren't looking good. The star is at war with the studio. Marketing has been frozen. Public perception has tanked. And it's not just this film. Disney is struggling across the board. Marvel's recent flops, rewrites across the MCU, Disney Plus subscribers dropping, creative confusion, corporate panic. Snow White was supposed to be a safe bet, a return to Disney's roots with a modern twist. Instead, it's become the poster child for everything going wrong at the Mouse House.
As an actor, you don't get to dictate anything. You don't get to dictate if a film actually happens. You don't get to dictate when it is shot, how it is shot, if you can ever speak about it to the public.
And now, even the people making the movie aren't sure what it's supposed to be anymore. Conclusion, South Park's warpath isn't done. But here's the scariest part. This might not even be over. There are already whispers that South Park is planning a follow-up, another takedown, possibly one that takes aim directly at Disney CEO Bob Iger himself. If that happens, the situation could go from disastrous to irreparable. Because this isn't just about a movie. It's about what happens when a billion-dollar brand loses control of its own story.
Yeah, the entire film's about a love story. It's about a love story because that's what the point of the film is. And I'm sorry that chivalry and a man pursuing you is now deemed as stalking, which now it's kind of making sense why men are opting out of the dating scene.
It's about how fast a cultural shift can turn into a firestorm, and what happens when modern messaging crashes into nostalgic expectations. Rachel Zegler may not have intended to start a culture war, but thanks to South Park, she's now the face of it. And whether her career and this movie can survive that, only time will tell. If you thought this story was wild, it's far from over. Hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into the chaos behind the scenes in Hollywood. This won't be the last time South Park shakes the industry, and we'll be here for every moment.